The World Health Organization is on the verge of collapse. This is the list of nations withdrawing from the WHO continues to mount. Now, the latest announcement comes from the nation of Argentina. President Javier Milei has confirmed that he has signed an order withdrawing his country from the United Nations Health Agency, citing fundamental disagreements with the way the WHO conducts itself and its threat to Argentine sovereignty. Now, Milei's order comes on the heels of a similar call coming out of the nation of Italy. Former Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini is calling for the complete withdrawal of his nation from the WHO. He wants to join states like Argentina, the United States, and Liechtenstein, all of whom have overtly rejected membership in the United Nations Health Organization. Now, this is absolutely huge, this growing list, as it were, because it really does mean ultimately the end of the WHO. The WHO is not going to survive this. And it's none other than leftist liberals who are openly panicking over that. Former HHS Secretary Kathleen Sebelius openly admitted that the WHO is on the verge of collapse with the United States withdrawal of their membership. Again, I'm sure you all know by now that one of President Trump's first executive orders was to withdraw the United States from the WHO after the corrupt way they handled the pandemic. Well, Sebelius is arguing that without American aid, the kind of stuff that comes from USAID, without the WHO getting bankrolled by the U.S., without those officials dipping their hands into that piggy bank of your tax dollars, the WHO's organization operational structure simply can't be maintained. Trump has, in effect, starved the WHO of the resources needed for it to carry out its policies. And, of course, according to her, millions and millions are going to die around the world as a result. What's so pathetic with these woke liberal psychopaths in their love affair of hiding behind human shields, they're hiding behind the hysterics of the loss of human life. That's all a veneer to cover up the mass corruption that exists behind the scenes that enriches them. It's a corruption that, of course, Elon and Doge have exposed precisely with the USAID. Remember, every time the Democrats screech out, no one voted for Elon! No one voted for Elon Musk! Yeah, our response should be, no one voted for Fauci either. No one voted for the WHO. And you had no problem with those two literally running the world. The end of the line for the WHO really does seem to have been in its attempt at shoving something called the World Pandemic Agreement down the throats of the world's populations. It was incredibly unpopular. It was touted as an effort to draw up rules around who does what in the event of another worldwide pandemic. But the agreement included a section called Article 13A, and this is what it stated, quote, states parties recognize the WHO as the guidance and coordinating authority of international public health response during public health emergency and international concern, and undertake to follow the WHO's recommendations in their international public health response. So obviously the concern here is that member nations that sign on to that treaty would end up surrendering their national sovereignty and how best to respond to a pandemic. If, God forbid, another pandemic were to happen, it would now be the unelected bureaucrats of the WHO who would decide the rules and protocols for dealing with that pandemic. And to make it even worse, the treaty included things like the right of the WHO to not only mandate vaccines and vaccine procedures, but also who can access all kinds of alternative antiviral drugs, as well as even mandate what can be publicly said, right? The information that would be allowed to be disseminated regarding the vaccines and the drugs. It's absolutely absurd, and it received a worldwide backlash, fierce worldwide backlash. For example, these are scenes from Japan back in April of 2024. This was one of a number of mass protests, both in Japan and around the world, against the WHO's threat to national sovereignty. And it helped to dramatically undermine the WHO's authority and mission for an increasing number of the world's populations. But what's so interesting here with now the addition of Argentina's withdrawal, the reason for the collapse of the WHO actually goes way beyond its own corruption and authoritarianism. Wait until you see the real reason for the WHO's implosion. This is going to blow you away. But first, gang, here we are in the first few weeks of the new presidential administration, and the legacy media is already working overtime to try futilely to spin Trump's astonishing beginning with their own left-wing narratives. It's never been more important to have the right tools to uncover the media bias and break free from big tech algorithms and echo chambers. So that's why I use Ground News. It's a website and app that gathers stories from, get this, over 50,000 news sources worldwide, lets you compare coverage across the political spectrum, and it highlights stories one side might be ignoring. See for yourself at ground.news/Steve. My favorite feature of Ground News is the blind spot feed, so it shows you stories that are disproportionately reported by either the left or the right. I find it really helpful for gaining a balanced perspective in our hyper-polarized world. So, for example, here's a story that was completely ignored by left-leaning outlets. Democrats' unfavorable rating hit 16-year high amid post-2024 election reflection. Now, to be fair, here's a recent story that got almost no coverage on the right. Federal employees are told to name colleagues who work in DEI roles or risk adverse consequences. Now, for both of these and for every story, Ground News gives you a breakdown of the sources covering it, the bias of the media outlets reporting across the left, center, and right, how reliable these sources have been in the past, and who owns them. So this is the kind of news analysis you're not going to find anywhere else. Right now, my viewers can get 40% off the Unlimited Access Vantage plan, which is the same plan I have. Make sure you subscribe using my link at ground.news/Steve. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code when signing up. That's ground.news/Steve for 40% off. I came across a very interesting piece on the left-wing site Left East on how, in many respects, 2025 isn't so much the year of Trump as it is the year of Javier Milei. So this is Argentina's, and in many ways, the world's first overtly libertarian president. Now, many of you, I'm sure, remember this video that went viral when Milei had announced his presidential candidacy. Check this out.
Ministerio de Ciencia y Tecnología e Innovación. Algo bien del sector privado. Nada bueno salió del sector público. ¡Afuera! Ministerio de Trabajo, Empleo y Seguridad Social. ¡Afuera! Ministerio de Educación. Adoctrinamiento. ¡Afuera! Ministerio de Transporte. ¡Afuera!
¡Afuera! ¡Afuera! Out! Right? That's Milei demonstrating what he would do if elected, with all the government agencies that have been set up in Argentina to basically stifle individual freedom, economic growth, and initiative, and the like. And in many ways, it was an Argentine version of what the libertarian economist Milton Friedman was advocating here in the United States back in the 1990s.
Keep them or abolish them? Department of Agriculture.
Abolish.
Gone.
Oh,
Department of Commerce.
Abolish.
Gone. Department of Defense.
Keep.
Keep it. Department of Education.
Abolish.
Gone. Energy.
Abolish.
Abolish. Afuera. Now, what's so interesting here is that Milei's libertarianism today is going way beyond an ideology of dismantling government agencies in order to return power to the people and the restoration of property rights. That is, of course, what Friedman was arguing for decades and the like. But what's happening today is so much more than that. Milei's administration, like Trump's, isn't just dismantling a government. They are both dismantling nothing less than an entire macrocosmic world order, specifically the liberal modern world order. The modern world, which began in the 18th century Enlightenment and developed through the 19th century industrial period, is the world of mass bureaucracy and centralized power, with the twin processes of urbanization and telecommunications modern society developed an unprecedented level of bureaucratic oversight and managerialism, where political power was increasingly dislodged from localized control and reallocated around a centralized managerial elite, all supposedly for our own safety and benefit, of course. That massive bureaucracy then protected itself and grew itself by becoming a slush fund that financed liberal special interest groups all over the world, as we've been seeing, of course, of late with the exposures of USAID. What's so fascinating here is that the current dismantling that we're seeing today by both President Trump and President Milei in Argentina represents really nothing less than the dismantling of that liberal modern world itself. Today, we're witnessing nothing less than the end of the liberal modern era. All of its bloated bureaucracy, all of its blatant corruption, its use of government as a slush fund and money laundering operation to reward left-wing special interests, to grow its own power, all of it is being dismantled right before our very eyes. It's no coincidence that Elon Musk actually retweeted not too long ago that video of Milton Friedman listing out all the departments he would abolish ideally. Modern bloated bureaucracy and the corruption that pervades it is being replaced with a postmodern efficiency, where the government is now being recalibrated away from globalist kickbacks to instead thoroughly nationalist populist interests. That is the astonishing historical moment that we're finding ourselves in, and that is precisely why old globalist institutions like the WHO do appear to be meeting their final demise. Hey there, Dr. Steve here, and I got a question for you. What if you could go back in time and get in on the Bitcoin era when it was still just under $1? Or buy a prime real estate before the market exploded, say, in Manhattan? Or invest in a company like Tesla before the whole world caught on? Well, that's exactly where we are right now. The parallel economy is exploding like never before. New financial opportunities are opening up, and those who see the shift and take action early are the ones who will prosper the most. That's why I'm hosting a live 90-minute event on February 27th called the America's Golden Age Summit. Now, I'll be joined by some amazing expert guests who are going to show you how to position yourself for massive success in this new era. But even better, what exactly to do in this new era. It's a truly one-of-a-kind, game-changing event. Listen, early bird tickets are now just $7, but not for long. Click the link, grab your spot, and be a part of America's Golden Age Summit. Do not miss this chance to get ahead. I can't wait to see you there.